Now, the head of the city's sergeants union, Ed Mullins, he is urging police to follow the rule book, quote, the way it's written. That in response to de Blasio's remarks. Mullins says police are being asked to follow through with every call until the work's completed, even if it means they will not be able to respond to a more serious scene. All right, this raises a whole host of questions. I want to bring in our panel. Of course, the regular suspects here, Dominic Carter, political journalist and author, and also Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent. And sitting next to him is Nick Casale. Nick's a private investigator, former New York Police Department detective, and also terror prevention specialist, having worked in the New York State Office of Homeland Security and also the MTA's Deputy Director of Security for Counterterrorism. All right. Bunch of things to get into here, and we got our legal panel coming up that's going to answer some of the legal questions, all of them serving as prosecutors and now defense attorneys, so they have it from both sides of the aisle. But from a policing standpoint, Nick, if we take this on, is what's on trial here what happened in Staten Island, or in your eyes is it community policing, or even more broadly or more specifically, I should say, a chokehold?
Well, I think right now it's starting to spiral out of control. You have a new administration that has just stepped in, and this is their first bombshell. And it's a test of how they can handle it. And as it's going on, Al Sharpton and others are really distracting from the issues here. You have a video, and unlike other videos, this is a fairly long video. It shows prior, during, and after the incident. That video has to be reviewed by police procedures. It'll be reviewed by the Richmond County prosecutors, the district attorney in Staten Island, and there'll be a determination. Now, the medical examiner, she made a determination, but her determination is separate from that of the criminal law. Hers is based upon medical evidence. At the end, somebody's going to make a decision, and there is no sidestepping it here. There is no calling for an independent review. There's no reason to call for any federal oversight. We have a system, and the system is working correctly. If it's not working fast enough, well, that's how it is. If it's not working to someone's liking, tough luck. But it's going the correct way.
Except
Why
there
prejudge?
seems to be a debate in living color. It seemed pretty clear. What's a chokehold? What's not a chokehold? Everybody agrees chokeholds are banned. Now, we might get into a practical question about what do you do when someone's resisting arrest, and we can have that conversation. But for the PBA, and I know we're going to say they're just doing their job, but to say it's not a chokehold when we're looking at, the arm around the neck, arm behind the neck, going straight down to the ground. You hear the planes, I can't breathe, and we all know how it ended from there. Even the police commissioner, forget the mayor, they all said it looked like a chokehold to him. If everybody believes, looks like a duck and quacks like a duck is a duck, and it is a chokehold, and that's a banned procedure, is there any other way for this thing to play out?
Well, we're not at the Coliseum where everybody gets to vote thumbs up and thumbs down. We're abided by the law. Experts are going to look at that. I look at it, and what I see is first a yoke, and then I see a restraint. I don't see the intent to cut off the air going to Mr. Garner with the intent to kill. That's what a chokehold is. Anything other than that gives a sanctice to a certain part of the body that you shouldn't be able to touch. The video is there. It's how do you analyze it? Do we analyze it factually, or do we analyze it from emotion?
Guys, I got questions about what comes next here, but the video itself and what we saw, and we've seen other videos now that have come up in recent times. Dominic talked about one in particular here, but we've seen in the city incidents, including females, etc., where if it's not a chokehold, it's something resembling, it's community policing that people think is being applied unfairly. And the department's going to have to answer this question. We see one incident there recently. Do you guys want to jump in on what we saw in the video? And in the end, while it may not be the Coliseum, a jury very likely, 12 people are going to be looking at that thing and making their own determination.
Well, it's an assumption 12 people will look at this.
Yes.
If I'm one of the police officers involved in this situation, Dominic Carter, I am not going with a jury trial because a jury is going to act on emotion. You got to understand this, Richard, and I agree with the assessment that's been made. This man has been around for a long time and knows what he's talking about. the PBA are going to bring in the Johnny Cochrans of our day to represent these police officers. And intent and whether or not resisting arrest, they're going to destroy the character of the man that shot the video, who was recently arrested. That's going to hurt the prosecutors if there's a criminal case, because I'm not even sure as of right now that there will be a criminal case. I don't think Dan Donovan wants to go forward with a criminal prosecution. And so it'll be a matter that we may see what we've seen in the past, where Sharpton will then call for a special prosecutor, or as he has, call for the feds to take on the case. This is very, very complicated. And it's not a slam dunk. The video is not a slam dunk.
I'll get into the legality with a panel coming up, but this is already, from an optics standpoint, beyond the video, Andrew. We've seen Reverend Al sitting shoulder to shoulder with the police commissioner and also the mayor here. Whether he was already elevated or he was elevated through the process, he's made it clear what he's looking for right here. And the medical examiner's report seems to give credence to at least his contention. If there isn't a jury trial, there's going to be major problems.
I would think so. If there's any sense from the community that this is not being done through the proper channels, or that the full, scale of justice hasn't been applied in this case, then I'm sure the community will be extremely dissatisfied, no matter what the outcome happens to be. I don't know the intricacies of the courtroom, and that's for the legal panel that's coming up later. I just don't understand the need for the chokehold. And it's pretty obvious from the video from the Garner case that it is a chokehold. And whether the intent was to do bodily harm to Mr. Garner or not, I mean...
What about that, Nick? Did they have to go where they went?
Look, hindsight is 20/20. I mean, the officers made their decision to do it. If you ask me what my decision would have been, or any other officer, it may have been different. But that is not the issue here. The issue is that the officers follow a procedure. What do you do? It's almost avant-garde now. What do you do when somebody says, no,
force? Was it
you're under arrest? No.
Force for what they did? And do you consider at the time that this guy didn't pose a violent threat to anybody? He was backing up with his hands up. Nobody suspected there was weapons or anything else. He had a history that apparently the officers were familiar with, so everybody knew who they were dealing with. Did they overreact and use unreasonable force?
Again, the person wasn't searched. He wasn't handcuffed. He was placed under arrest. A person who is placed under arrest by a police officer doesn't have the option to say, no, I don't want to be arrested.
Granted.
Let's discuss this. And as far as Patty Lynch goes, and Al Sharpton, I mean, that's like putting the Israelis and Palestinians on opposite sides of the table. They're not going to budge from their position. And that's not positive for this incident. What we need to do is have people with knowledge and people who speak authoritatively on the issue review it. And that's the only way we're going to come together on new procedures and how to police. I mean, Staten Island, you asked a question about community policing. I believe Staten Island has the highest ratio of any borough with police officers that live within that borough policing it. I mean, that fundamentally is community policing.